Good Tuesday afternoon to you. 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Thanks for joining us. Browns less than a month until they head to training camp in West Virginia. National reports circulating Patriots and free agent DeAndre Hopkins appear to have mutual interests, but they appear to be apart as far as the money aspect of it goes. Some of those reports have the Browns and Panthers still in the mix, but Ian Rappaport this afternoon on the Pat McAfee Show had this to say.
I saw the Browns thing, and I think it was like they were lurking or something. Like I thought it was very cool that Deshaun Watson kind of came out and was like, "Yeah, I'd love to play with him." I never really got the sense the Browns were in it. To me, barring some sort of injury or some team realizing they have money they didn't previously have, my guess is those two teams that he visited are probably the two that he's considering, right? I mean, Titans and Patriots, I think both those teams would certainly make some sense.
Yeah.
Probably been a little more smoke toward the Patriots.
Whoa. Okay.
What was the smoke? The plane that Bill Belichick booked for him to go up there?
Yeah. One-on-one.
Travel agent.
Oh, they're doing, what's that?
That was a pretty big deal.
They're doing chemtrails to get him up there? That's the smoke? What are you talking about?
I just say the feel. I think the Patriots are very much in it. We'll see what they end up doing if something happens as we get closer to camp. But the interest does seem to be from both sides there. Now there's, I would be surprised if he signed from now right until the start of training camp.
God damn it.
So and any team could jump in and be like, all right, these receivers that we thought were going to contribute are not contributing, so we now need this guy. That's kind of his ace in the hole.
Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter with Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, that sounds a whole lot like what you've been saying for the last 10, 12 days. It just likely isn't going to happen unless something dramatically changes as far as Hopkins and the Browns go.
Yes, I tried to spell that out very, very clearly. As you mentioned, I don't know if it was 10 days ago or 2 weeks ago or something along those lines. But that was that even though Deshaun Watson came out and said he would like to have DeAndre Hopkins, that might be something nice that you do for a friend to kind of boost his market a little bit. Of course, he would like to have him here. But even when he was saying that, I think he knew at that time that the Browns were really not interested, that it was not going to happen. And that still stands. And as I've written, the only way that it would happen at this point or going forward is if they have a major injury to a key player, such as an Amari Cooper or an Elijah Moore or a Donovan Peoples-Jones. Short of that, he won't be coming here.
All right. I know you've answered this in a Hey, Mary Kay. Why do you think there's such a drastic difference in perspective from the national media's view of the Browns and the local media's view of the Browns?
Well, I do think the national media, first of all, looks at, records from the previous year, sees what, happened, sees that the Browns went 7-10, and for whatever reason, just always seems, to have a hard time getting it together. So I think that's one thing. Then the other thing is, I just think that they're not ready to buy into the Deshaun Watson program yet. I don't think they're there. I think they're, very reluctant for a lot of reasons. I think that the off the field stuff has a lot to do with it, that people just aren't necessarily ready to buy in and give him the benefit of the doubt. So I think it's still going to take a little while. Maybe winning will help in that regard, maybe it won't, but right now people are just not quite ready to buy fully in.
I also found this kind of interesting. So which of the Browns besides Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett have to have good years, have to excel for the Browns to be the playoff team and the kind of team they want to be?
You know what? I think Elijah Moore is definitely one because, he was such a big offseason acquisition that, I think that he's someone that they really need to have him come in here and play really, really well for them. And then I think that Zadarius Smith is another one. I think he'll make everything easier for Myles Garrett. I think Juan Thornhill is a key player for this year. And then Nick Chubb always needs to play well.
Yeah, and again, asking those guys to play well, it's not that big of a stretch. Elijah Moore is a guy that you would figure would be ascending. The other guys have played well in the NFL previously, so it's not like you're asking guys to do things they haven't done before.
Right. I mean, you're really just hoping to get what you sort of paid for or what you traded for. And, these guys have a history. Zadarius Smith in his last 3 healthy seasons averaged 12 sacks in each of those years. So, that's the kind of production that they're going to be looking for with Elijah Moore. They're going to be looking for him to build on what he was able to start in his rookie year when he had 5 touchdown catches. So these are the kinds of things that they will be expecting from those guys. Juan Thornhill has taken a team to the Super Bowl in 3 straight years, has 2 rings. So these are high caliber, high quality players. They're looking for more of the same.
This is from ESPN.com. Surprise offseason standouts for each of the 32 NFL teams. For the Browns, they go with Marquise Goodwin. Browns made a couple of noteworthy moves to upgrade their receiving core, trading for Elijah Moore, drafting Cedric Tillman. Yet another under-the-radar addition, 32-year-old Goodwin dominated Cleveland's minicamp, flashing downfield wheels. Could make him an intriguing weapon for quarterback Deshaun Watson. Mary Kay, the thing that really sticks out about Goodwin is he's a fast guy who is a football player.
Yeah, and he really did do a nice job in minicamp and in OTAs, but you have to remember that the minicamps right now are favoring the offense. You cannot get hit, you cannot get tackled, you cannot get touched. So you can get behind the defense, you can do kind of what you want to do, and they just have to say, just wait until the regular season and then it'll be our turn as well. So I think that you have to take some of that with a grain of salt, but certainly he had a nice offseason and looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do in training camp.
To use a baseball analogy, he is a home run hitter. He can pop a 60, 70, 80-yard play at any given time. And if he does that at the right time 2 or 3 times, he's a huge signing.
Yeah, and the important thing to remember about this is that Deshaun Watson has the arm talent to get it there. He's got the big arm to throw it deep, to stretch the defense, to throw it behind, to lead Marquise Goodwin on those deep balls because he's got the speed to catch up to it. Deshaun can get it there. He can be accurate on the run. So I think that has a lot to do with it, that he will blend very well with Deshaun.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason for the first time today.
I like how Kevin and Alex Van Pelt are using Elijah Moore as a gadget player. Everybody says that he's going to be like a Debo, but, Kevin's not going to run with Elijah Moore. He's way too small. He's way, way, way too small, and he's not a natural running back. He's more like a Tyreek Hill. I'm not trying to compare Tyreek to Elijah, but he's more so like a gadget. Like get him in the backfield, make all the defenders look in the backfield. But the one critique that I would want to see going forward is not just having Elijah in the backfield. I want to see Marquise. I want to see Jakeem. Like just be multiple in that sense. Okay, you have 2 or 3 gadget players that can go in the backfield. So that way, when Elijah goes in, nobody is really like sniffing us out already.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, I don't think they view him as a gadget player. I think they view him as let's get the ball in his hands, like a touch kind of guy. And the reason you put him in the backfield is you can identify who's covering him. And if you like that matchup, you go to it.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe him as a gadget player either. He's going to be pretty much an every down player because he can play in the slot, he can play outside, he can do so many different things. He can line up in the backfield. He can do all different kinds of things. He can run the jet sweeps. He's got speed, he's got hands, he's got separation. So, I don't think that he is a gadget player by any stretch. I think he will be on the field early and often. I think he'll challenge for the second most targets on the team.
Yeah, and they're just trying to find different ways to attack the defense. You line them up in all those ways, and it makes the defense identify where he is. It just gives them something else to worry about.
Yeah, and this receiving core is so eclectic. They have a little bit of everything, and they can hurt you in so many different ways, and they can play the matchup games. They can play tall ball, with Jordan Akins and with Ced Tillman. They can go small, they can go fast, they can mix it up and give you a combination of all of the above. They can play 2, 3, 4 wides. So they can do so many things, and I think that they will only be limited by their imagination.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We'll head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason and talk a little bit about the Browns defense. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave, Frank from Cleveland. Great show as always. A couple things. David Bell. All right. He reminds me, he fits the mold of Brian Brennan. Regardless if he gets separate or gets beat, someone still has to cover that man. So that opens things up for the other guys. That's in my opinion. That's just my opinion. And number two is over onto the defensive side of the ball. Jim Schwartz are going to let these guys play to their abilities, what their strengths are. It's going to be way different from Joe Woods. You remember you even said Joe Woods had multiple schemes. I never heard of that. You know, this is pin your ears back and go after the quarterback and cover in the secondary. And the linebacker shouldn't be getting dirty this year with that defensive line. So I love the show. Love you, brother. You be safe and be good. Love you. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, Brian Brennan was a guy that always made big catches. If David Bell develops into a Brian Brennan type, winning teams have a Brian Brennan type.
Yeah, and I think David Bell, has more so on this team and in this regime been compared to sort of a Jarvis Landry. If he can become, even half of what Jarvis Landry was, obviously, that would be a huge win for the Cleveland Browns. And that's what they're hoping for. And again, they draft these guys really young. I think David Bell is still only 22. So they draft these guys really young and they seek to develop them. He's got a really good receivers coach in Chad O'Shea. I think they really still like David Bell. And I don't think he's going anywhere, even though, some people have him off the team in 2023.
As far as the defense goes, we've heard it. It seems like it's easy to want to play in the style of defense that Jim Schwartz is going to ask these guys to play. It's go get them.
Yeah, see quarterback, get quarterback. That's what I've been calling it. So that's what these guys love to do. They love to attack the quarterback. That's what defensive linemen are all about. They could have as many as 3 double-digit sackers if it all goes the way that it is supposed to this year. So, I think Miles is in for a big year. Same thing with Za'Darius, maybe Obo as well. So, these guys are going to enjoy their Sunday afternoons.
And it will be fun to watch. Now, I know you did this for the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Who's in, who's out? And it's part of the 23 questions for 2023. Who's in, who's out on the defensive line?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first man up to start next to Dalvin Tomlinson at defensive tackle after Zadarius Smith goes in there, because he might be the first one to actually start in there. But the next guy after that, I think, is still Jordan Elliott at this point. I think Siaki Ika, their third-round pick, is still learning, coming up the learning curve. So I don't think he's there quite yet. Of course, he's going to make the team. And then you have to look at Tommy Togiai and Perion Winfrey. Those guys are going to have to battle to make the team. It's going to turn into a numbers game. And, Perion has to prove that he's mature enough to handle the job. Tommy Togiai has to prove that he's better than, say, like a Maurice Hurst or someone like that, who is a veteran with some experience. So lots of bodies at the position, and some guys, just by the sheer numbers, will not be able to make the team.
And that's what the Browns want, though. The competition brings out the best in guys that you want in those positions. That's the goal of it.
That is the goal. And, that should help those young guys like Tommy Togiai and Perion Winfrey, knowing that they brought in Tristan Hill, knowing that they brought in a Maurice Hurst and still have Jordan Elliott, and that Zadarius Smith will be playing inside a lot. So those guys know that they have to pick it up, step it up, and, really bring their A game to camp.
And again, this is from a Hey Mary Kay. I found it really interesting. How do you think the Browns' defense under Jim Schwartz, with that aggressive style, how does it deal with a mobile quarterback like Lamar Jackson? Does it deal with it well?
Yeah, I think they have the horses to handle that. Now, what we don't know about Lamar is if he will take off running as much as he did in the past with Todd Monken as his offensive coordinator. He might hang back there a little bit more. He might stay in the pocket and throw from the pocket more often than he has in the past. So that's one of the things to keep an eye on. But I think they have enough speed off the edges with Obo and with Miles to contain a running quarterback like that. I think they certainly have the linebackers that can handle it in the, in the JOKs on the core. So I think they should be able to tame Lamar and his legs a little bit better this year.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see that, and Jim Schwartz is going to be aggressive. It isn't he's not going to be passive just because the guy's athletic, without question. We mentioned training camp about a month away, a little less than a month. So the players have some free time, and a lot of them are spending it doing camps. This is Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah's JOK 757 camp near his hometown of Hampton, Virginia. That's Amari Cooper, who is at JOK's camp in Virginia, helping him. Had a piece that dealt with nutrition in addition to football. JOK doing some good things near his hometown of Hampton, Virginia. This a little closer to home as Myles Garrett at his pro camp at Gilmore High School, showing some of the campers' pass rush moves up close and personal, and getting to the quarterback. Again, Myles Garrett having some fun with campers out at Gilmore High School. And Mary Kay, all of those guys, there's a month until the grind starts for them. It shows how important being involved in their hometown is. Myles comes here to do that. JOK goes back home to do it.
Yeah, a lot of those guys really, really seem to enjoy working with the kids. It's kind of fun to see them interacting with the kids. Myles has a lot of kid in him, and he seems to really have a blast working with the kids and really getting in there and doing those drills and laughing and enjoying his time with them. I think it's very genuine. I know it's the same with JOK and a lot of these other guys. So, yeah, good for them for getting out and doing these sorts of things. And, it means a whole lot to the kids. Kareem did his camp recently. Denzel's done a camp. Most of them do them, and the kids really do enjoy them.
All right, before we go to break, this is from NFL.com. 2023 Browns breakout stars. They go with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Last season, Owusu-Koramoah had a quiet, injury-hampered follow-up to his promising rookie year, logging 70 tackles, 2 forced fumbles in 11 games. Owusu-Koramoah seems to fit new defensive coordinators Jim Schwartz's desire to have linebackers play fast. And Mary Kay, we talked last week when you were on. The Browns are counting on him to get ready and be a big part of the defense.
Yes, absolutely. And he's coming off of a mid-foot sprain, so he'll probably have to take it easy in camp a little bit. But for the most part, I think he should be okay. He's a fast healer and he works really hard at it. But yeah, certainly this is an opportunity for him, for the lights to sort of come on for him and show that he can make that impact. Last year was a challenging year for him in some ways. He missed some time with an injury. He was coming off the horrible tragedy, the horrible loss of his brother in the offseason. And, this year, I think that, he's, a little bit better equipped to handle the demands of the season. And I think he should have a good year.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take one more time out. Other side of the break, we'll go back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, plus dive in a little deeper to what the Browns offense might look like in 2023. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, love the show. Long-time watcher, viewer, listener. I've called many, many times. I've been gone for a while. Just have a quick comment, question, I guess. Does it finally feel like that the owners, the Haslams, are finally starting to understand the football league and getting it right? Because I feel like this is the longest tenured GM head coach that we've had that are on the same page, which is good news for the Browns. So I guess that's the comment. I guess the question is, do you think they're finally on the right page, doing the right things, and finally putting it together? I mean, I guess you never know unless you're winning a Super Bowl or you're competing, but, we've kept the same people in the building, kept familiarity with everybody. So I feel like they're doing the right thing. What do you guys think? Go Browns. Woo, woo, woo.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I've said it for the last couple of years. I do think that they've been pretty good and patient. At the same time, you got to start winning. But yes, I think the Haslams have been really good the last few years and patient.
Well, they recognize that they have alignment in their organization, that everyone is pulling together, that they're all on the same page, and they feel really, really good about all of that. But as you mentioned, now the winning has to happen. They certainly don't want this football team to go 3 straight years missing the playoffs when they've made such an enormous investment in Deshaun Watson and Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and Nick Chubb and the guards and everybody else on this team, Amari Cooper. So they certainly don't want to be on the outside looking in again at the end of this season. I don't exactly know what will happen if that does happen. I know they don't want to have a short leash or a quick hook. That is not what this is supposed to be all about. They want stability in their organization. They love Kevin Stefanski. They love Andrew Berry, Paul DePodesta. So I know the Haslams want continuity, but they also want playoffs. We'll have to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, and to the point, they've opened up and given Andrew Berry the resources to do as much as he wants under the constraints of what he's allowed to do via the salary cap.
Yeah, I mean, they basically have an open checkbook to do whatever they want with the football team. And if they need more players, then they just go ahead and restructure Deshaun's contract, clear a little bit of cap space, and go out and buy themselves some more players. So they're in good shape that way. They've added a lot of talent to the football team. They're okay cap-wise. They're really, really good capologists. And, it just now has to translate onto the field, and that's what everyone expects to happen.
All right, this again from one of your Hey Mary Kays. How will the focus on Deshaun Watson's arm impact Nick Chubb, do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to ponder, to think about. I do think that Nick Chubb is still going to get a lot of carries and a lot of touches because it still is Cleveland. You're still going to have weather issues in November and December. It still is the AFC North where you're playing really, really tough defenses also at times in inclement weather. So I do think that he will still get plenty of touches in that regard, but I also think he'll get the ball more out of the backfield, especially with Kareem Hunt gone. I think that Nick will be put in more positions to catch the ball more out of the backfield. Now it's just up to him. He's got to prove he can do it. And if he can do it, then he'll get more and more. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I mean, he's going to have a lot on his plate. He's going to have to be not only the workhorse back, but sometimes the third down back, and sometimes, just that goal line bruiser that Kareem Hunt used to be.
Who do you think kind of steps into a leadership role, or who might, do you think, for the Browns?
I think some of the new guys will. We've talked about this a little bit, but I do think that, you've got some more vocal guys on the team in terms of, I think Elijah Moore is going to be a leader in his own right, even though he's kind of young. He's a little bit more vocal than some of the other wide receivers are. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think Za'Darius Smith brings a natural leadership. I think the same thing about Obo and about Juan Thornhill and Rodney McLeod. So I think you've added not just some really good talent to your football team, but you've added some really good leadership. Also on the offensive side of the ball, I think that Joshua Dobbs plays that kind of role. He sort of fills some of the hole left behind by Jacoby Brissett when he took his leadership out the door. So, these are some of the guys that I think will fill those vacancies.
Lots been made about the running back position. Do you think Demetric Felton makes the team, and what does he have to do to carve out a role, do you think?
I think he's on the bubble, but, he is playing more running back right now, at least, or he was during the offseason, and I think it's good for him to find a home. There is more of, of a job opening there than there is at wide receiver, so I do think it gives him the best chance to make the team. Now he has to show that he can do multiple things, play some special teams, catch the ball out of the backfield, pick up the blitz. He's not a huge guy. Get those tough yards when you need them. If he can do all those kinds of things and also be versatile enough to maybe split out wide and play some receiver, then he has a chance to stick around as a weapon for this team.
Let's take a worst case scenario. If the Browns don't make the playoffs, what do you think one or two things could be that kind of side or derail the season, if you will?
Well, I think first and foremost, the number one thing would be, how is Deshaun Watson playing? Is he returning to his 2020 form? Is Kevin Stefanski calling the game for him that enables him to shine? So, that's probably the biggest thing. Is Deshaun who everybody believes he is or was when they traded for him and signed him to that big $230 million contract? So that's number one. And then the number two is health. I mean, you have to be lucky. You have to be healthy. You can't be losing the Myles Garretts and the Za'Darius Smiths and the Denzel Wards for any length of time, or Amari or whatever. You really need to have your stars very, very healthy to succeed. Luck is a part of that.
How concerned are you with the beginning part of the season? Because you do have a new defensive system. You do have a new, offensive system, because Deshaun Watson's going to be integrated. And you get right after it with, those first 4 or 5 games.
I think it can go either way. They can either, sneak up on some teams, and teams aren't going to know what they're all about and what they're doing, and that can be to their advantage, or they aren't ready for primetime yet, and they have to face 3 of their AFC North foes in those first 4 games, and they're just not there yet. So it can go either way. So they're going to have to really rep it a lot in the preseason and in training camp. They're going to have to make sure that they're just fundamentally sound, and maybe to a certain extent keeping it a little simple so they're not confusing themselves in the early going. I think that defensively they will be just more streamlined, and the guys will know more about what to do and where to be. So I think they will be very focused on starting strong.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, thanks so much for the time and the insight. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Always great stuff. Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
And how about you?
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. This is from FS1's Speak. And the crew is talking about Deshaun Watson and the 2023 season.
His old self led the league in passing touchdowns before. His old self has been to the playoffs, but his old self ain't won that many playoff games. Joy, what would constitute a successful season for Deshaun Watson?
Anything less than a Super Bowl appearance is a failure for Deshaun Watson.
Y'all fan her? She hot right now. Yeah, I fan her. It's about to get hot. It's about to get hot.
Or we could do this also. We could not mention any expectations for Jalen Hurts because he's been paid.
All right.
We could not mention any expectations for Dak because he's been paid. No expectations for Lamar Jackson because he's been paid. It's cool. We just can't mention anyone else's money when we talk about what the expectations for their performances should be, because Deshaun Watson got $230 million guaranteed.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Guaranteed.
Every owner in the league, not named the Haslams, and set the standard for every other contract. And if he doesn't do well, all the other owners will use his contract and his situation as an example of why they're not going to give their franchise quarterback $230 million guaranteed. So if it's not make it to the Super Bowl, why else did you give him $230 million guaranteed? Now, to be clear, I don't think they're anywhere near the Super Bowl. I don't think they're near the AFC Championship game. I don't think the Browns are going to win their division.
Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, I disagree with the last part of that, but I guess you pay a guy $230 million and you trade all that you traded because ultimately you think he can get you to the Super Bowl.
And, you know, the thing that was key probably, and from what maybe she could have said, should have said, was does she think Deshaun Watson is a quarterback that is able to be on parallel to take his team to the Super Bowl? Obviously, the Cleveland Browns feel that. That is what they truly think. And, you know, last year, you can't even base anything on the Cleveland Browns on Deshaun Watson from last season, you know, with only, 6 games coming at the end of the season. So you look at it this year and you go new and anew. And the key thing is how much have they, and we've talked about this before, Dave, how much have they invested in their investment? The Elijah Moore trade. So they took pick 43 in the NFL draft and turned it into not only Elijah Moore, but also into Cedric Tillman. You made a move to bring in Marquise Goodwin. I mean, and we talk about Goodwin a lot. I mean, there could be a chance where Goodwin maybe doesn't even end up making this final roster. But you look at what they did to this defense and the acquisition of bringing Jim Schwartz in to run it, in understanding that you're not going to hire a guy of this ilk and expect him to build through the draft. You're going to go out and get him proven commodities like they most certainly did. Look, people are always going to talk about Deshaun Watson's money, and we know why people are going to talk about Deshaun Watson's money, and it's probably fair to talk about Deshaun Watson's money. But the most difficult thing about covering a player like Deshaun Watson is I think he's everything you would hope for in your franchise quarterback, other than the fact that, there is an off-field, black cloud around him that's never going to go away. And, any of these stories, even if he, finds a way to be clean for the rest of his career, it's always going to be brought up. And, look, he's a lightning rod, and he was a lightning rod that several owners were certainly in line to hand a large amount of money to, not just the Haslams. He's the one they agreed to their money. But this is going to be the story for Deshaun Watson. The more he wins, we all know how this works, the less these stories about him off the field, will be brought up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know you've addressed this, talking to Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. I know you've done this on the Locked On Browns podcast. 3 biggest reasons the Browns will contend in 2023. What do you think they are?
Well, look, it's first and foremost, it is the quarterback. And you have to look at this through the ownership eyes, through the general manager's eyes, through the head coach's eyes. Coach Stefanski has basically planted his future in Cleveland on Deshaun Watson. Andrew Berry pretty much did the same thing. The Haslams, they ain't going nowhere. They're not going nowhere. They own the team. But they did sign off on the $230 million. So for that reason only, the changes you made on, as far as upgrading your coordinators, both of these guys coming in, being brought in, Jim Schwartz, obviously the track record is there. Bubba Ventrone eyes towards a bigger role in coaching than just a special teams coach, but a guy that can be respected because he put in 8 years in this league playing special teams, and there's a lot of respect for guys like that. Then you get to the personnel moves. I mean, everybody was so excited about Ogbonnaya Okoronkwo. Then you go into the draft and you bring in a player like Elijah McGuire, and all of a sudden, wow, this is a deep edge room. And you want to know it? You want to know it? We're not done yet. Let's go get to Darius Smith and add that to this mix too. You brought in a defense coordinator in Jim Schwartz, and his theory has always been, I want to get after the passer, and the best way I can do that is by having confidence in my secondary play. Well, you're 3 deep at cornerback. You're 3 deep at safety. There's many avenues you can go with this on the defensive side of the ball. They have just done so much to this roster. And look, I think more people are coming in line to where I am. And look, unless something Browns-ish happening, and we've all seen this many times before, this is a roster that should contend. And it should not just contend in the AFC North. It should be able to contend in the entire AFC.
Yeah, I'm with you. I agree wholeheartedly. It will be disappointing if it does not contend, unless there are multiple injuries to the top end of this talent, without question.
They're not going to have Deshaun Watson sit out the first 11 weeks. Most likely you're not going to have your quarterback break his shoulder in week 2, find his way to make it through 2 or 3 more games, and then all of a sudden fall apart as the year goes on, which causes a whole bunch of dissension within the roster, within the locker room. Those are things that most likely are not going to happen. Certainly we've seen plenty of Browns things over the years that, seem incomprehensible to most franchises. But you got to feel, and unless you're still stuck in those dark days, this is now a franchise where a bad year is 6 or 7 wins. We're talking about the days of bad years where, 0-16, 1-15 by the luck of the grace of a God of a blocked field goal late in the season. This team is a much better overall franchise than they used to be. So I do believe the expectation should be, and why wouldn't it be? You have players everywhere. Our biggest question is can you get in one more rotational defensive tackle? Could you maybe bring in a veteran running back with the hopes that your run forward is going to beat him out anyway? These are the things we're quibbling over right now.
Yeah, and you know what? There isn't a perfect roster anywhere in the NFL. Even the Chiefs and the Eagles. Even the Chiefs and Eagles are have their questions. All right, 8 takeaways from the NFL's offseason. This from USA Today. They go with hope for the downtrodden. Browns, far more will be expected in Watson's second season, recently acquired. Za'Darius Smith, Elijah Moore will need to pay dividends. But if Watson can settle in for what should be his first full season in 3 years, while Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb live up to expectations, Factory of Sadness could finally go into shutdown mode. The other thing about Deshaun Watson that gets overlooked, he was in a new system. So he hadn't played in almost 3 years in a new system with a new group of talent around him. And he didn't have the ability to work with them for 11 weeks. There's a lot that that had to be overcome.
And keep in mind, it was a new city, and it wasn't like it wasn't like he just came back to Houston after this 20-month hiatus and everything was brand new. Like if he was in Houston this season, new coaches, he was on the move. Basically, his entire career was hanging in the balance by something that was off-field related. Where was, and I know we talked about this, is where was his confidence going to be at? Like hearing your name and realizing that even though you might be home, there's people that hate you. And, that's a really difficult thing to go through. And look, yes, did he bring it upon himself? Yeah. In most cases, in this circumstances, he most certainly did. But that's a real difficult way to go through things. Now, I think it's a little bit different here. Maybe feels a little bit like he paid his penance, so to speak. And now he's here. He's part of everything OTA-wise. He's going to be part of everything training camp-wise. New toys brought in that he's going to get the entire, preseason, obviously, and training camp to work with here with like Elijah Moore, just doubling down on making sure this investment hits. You added in another tight end who he had familiarity with. Your little offensive line, you basically brought it back intact because the last thing you wanted to do was disrupt the apple cart. The belief should be, and we're talking about a guy whose career completion percentage is 67%. His career statistical numbers would break both the Browns' touchdown record and the Browns' total, passing yards for one season. That's basically what his average is in this league. So, look, if you want to temper your expectations because you've been down this road before, and maybe you've been bit by the bullet too many times, I get it, but you're not looking at it with true open eyes. This is a really, really good roster with coaching upgrades. And Coach Stefanski, who dealt with really, really bad luck in 2021, and 2022 was basically the entire season was held in the balance of how long Deshaun Watson was going to be out for. And when it was 6 games, I think everybody thought, all right, we're going to be all right. We got a shot. Once it went to 11, it was unrealistic to believe that this team would be able to find a way to contend in the AFC.
Yeah, and the best thing about this offseason, it's been quote-unquote normal for the Browns and Kevin Stefanski. Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We'll go through a ranking of the AFC North's wide receiving corps. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. Plexico Burress, former Steelers wide receiver, Craig Carton, on what they see in the 2023 Browns.
If Deshaun Watson can get back to that 4,800-yard seasons playing the position, the Cleveland Browns already have the best offensive line in football. They have Nick Chubb, and also you throw Amari Cooper into the mix with a Deshaun, Watson that's, slinging the ball all around the yard. He's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in football if he gets back to his style of play.
Yeah, they're not the doormats they've been for so long. So if you're Baltimore, if you're Cincinnati, that's a team you got to worry about now. It's not an easy W where you just pencil in, all right, that's a win, that's a win. Yeah. If Deshaun Watson plays the way we've seen him, which is Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, the Cleveland Browns are a good football team.
And Jeff, if he plays the way he's been, they're a contender to go to the Super Bowl. If he's a Pro Bowl, if you have Pro Bowl caliber quarterback play on this team, you are a contender.
We're talking about a team that is willing to transition away from what has been the bread and butter of this franchise for the last 5 years in Nick Chubb. understanding that you are going to now use Nick Chubb less, maybe as a runner, maybe you're going to get, involve him a little bit more as a receiver, because of the fact that you believe you have, evolved and that you are now capable of taking your offense to where the greats of the NFL do. Kansas City Chiefs run because they want to, not because they need to. Buffalo Bills run because they want to, not because they need to. You have these quarterbacks that you trust. Hey, I'm going to put the ball in your hands 50 times a game, and odds are, your track record tells me so, that you are going to win a heck of a lot more ball games than you are going to lose. So why would you deviate away from that? The Browns are now in that situation, they believe, with this guy, Deshaun Watson. And the only thing I'm going to put on there is, look, the Bengals never looked at the Browns and said, WW. Let's be honest, because the one team in this division, the Browns, have always matched up well with has been the Cincinnati Bengals. The Ravens, it's been a little bit different down there. But yes, and you keep that in mind, this team matches up well against the Cincinnati Bengals. We have no idea what version of the Baltimore Ravens is coming. Obviously, they're going to transition as well. They want to be able to get Lamar and more involved in throwing the ball to wide receivers, working outside the hash marks. Okay, let's see how that all works. And, we'll get to it. Obviously, we're going to talk about wide receivers here. But in six seasons, the Baltimore Ravens still do not know what an ideal wide receiver looks like for Lamar Jackson. At least you knew what your offense was. Now for the Ravens, the key is going to be, what will your offense be?
Yeah, that's fair. And, the one thing is, now with Deshaun Watson, at least the playing field with the quarterbacks between the Ravens and the Bengals a little more even. And that's all you're asking for if you're Kevin Stefanski and the Browns. All right, this is the AFC North wide receiving core rankings. Worst to best is from Dog Pound Daily. Number 4, the Ravens. They've got Bateman, Beckham, Zay Flowers, Nelson Aguilar. Beckham hadn't played in a couple of years. Bateman's been banged up. Flowers is a promising rookie. They go 3, the Steelers, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Allen Robinson. All right, Pickens is an interesting young guy. Robinson hasn't put it together. They go Browns number 2, Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Marquise Goodwin. Cooper, I think, is underrated nationally. And number 1, obviously the Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. That's probably the best receiving core in football. I can't argue with those rankings. I think they pretty much got those right.
Well, let's be honest here. This was never a discussion about who was number 1. This was a discussion about who was going to be number 2. When you talk about the Bengals wide receivers, the potential is legitimately 300 receptions between the 3 of those guys. And any one of those guys could easily eclipse 100. The only thing is that they kind of cancel each other out at times. But I do agree here. Look, the Ravens, Odell Beckham Jr. comes in here. But this should be a wide receiver room where we're talking about Bateman and we're talking about Zay Flowers. Nelson Aguilar should be like the afterthought third wide receiver, the veteran in this, if it doesn't work right for the kids. But Odell Beckham, and as we've seen, sometimes the thought of Odell Beckham Jr. is a lot better than the reality of Odell Beckham Jr. And week 1, week 2 go by, and between Bateman and Zay Flowers, they catch 12, 13 balls, and Odell only catches 2 or 3. What's going to happen? Because it's hard to say it's going to go well, because we've all seen it not go well in too many cities up until this point. The Steelers, I think the thing that kind of holds the Steelers back here right now is you're not sure where Kenny Pickett is at yet. I mean, Kenny Pickett and Deshaun Watson in 6 games, they threw the same amount of touchdown passes last year. Deontay Johnson, I've always thought maybe the name and the flashes have carried a little bit more than the game. Pickens is certainly the one to obviously watch there. The potential for what this guy can do if he can get stable quarterback play certainly is off the charts. But you look at the Browns, you look at what Cooper, and you look at what Donovan Peoples-Jones did last year, and you look at the potential of what a player like Elijah Moore can do. And the Browns have one of these Steeler types from back in the day, the Antoine Randall L., the Hines Wards. These guys could kind of do a little bit of everything, and they always found up a way to change the outcome of a big game. But I agree with this year. I think, between this Browns wide receiver room, the top 3, the potential is there to be, off the charts. Then you get to Tillman. Then, of course, you get to Marquise Goodwin. Then, of course, you get to David Bell. All these guys had proven college records. Goodwin has had his times here in the league where his speed has been a factor. It's a really, really deep room. And you get to Cincinnati, look, it's the standard. Yeah. It's basically, what you're looking for. That's what it's built on. And they were smart. And basically all their money is invested in Joe Burrow and what's going to be the contracts for these wide receivers. And I'll be honest with you, I don't blame them, because if between those three, those four, they can find a way to put up 25 to 30 a game, you can find a way to piecemeal the rest of your 48, 49-man roster.
Yeah, and really, that's the reason you need Denzel Ward and you need Greg Newsome and you need Martin Emerson, is because you got to play
Juan
those guys.
Thornhill, et cetera,
yeah,
yep.
You got to play those guys twice every year. All right, before we go to break, top 10 tight ends for 2023. This is from CBS Sports. Not surprising. Kelsey, Kittle, Mark Andrews, 1, 2, and 3. Seventh, they go Pat Freiermuth from the Steelers, who has had a really productive couple of years. Then they go David Njoku, number 8, former first-round pick, notched career highs nearly across the board, totaling 58 receptions, 628 yards last season. Caught 72.5% of his targets, highest of his career, only time he's gone above 70%. And, Jeff, you could say, I mean, we've talked about the quarterback play. Deshaun Watson is a guy that likes throwing to his to his tight ends, rather. David Njoku could be in for a career type year because of playing with Deshaun Watson.
Well, when you just first talk about David Njoku's stats, keep in mind there was missed time last year. So you pace that over a 17-game season. First off, when we're talking about this list, it's Travis Kelce. And then let's flip over a couple pages, and we'll start the rest of the conversation. That is where the gap is in with this position in the NFL. But no, I mean, I agree. And when we talk about David Njoku, when we talk about the fact that he was drafted, in 2017, he's still just a baby. He is literally, as far as tight ends are concerned, he is a baby. He has a sweet spot of about 5-6 more years in this league to be a highly productive player. Came in so young, and then eventually started to round into shape as a full, workable tight end, as far as being a blocker, as far as being a receiver, by the time he was 24, 25 years old. But no, I agree. And Darren Fells, and you remember Darren Fells, who caught Baker Mayfield's first touchdown pass in the NFL. Darren Fells, after his time in Cleveland, went down to Houston, was a great red zone option for Deshaun Watson, was involved in a lot of things that they did down there. And now you're talking about a player, David Njoku, who's just a better athlete, just an all-around better performer. The limit's there, and it's going to be one of these things where you're going to get weeks where you'll get a big number from a wide receiver, or the next week you get a big number from a tight end, because I think Deshaun's just going to have so many options on the field. He truly should be in a position to just take what the defense gives him, which will lead to shot plays, of course. But there'll be weeks where, hey, if you're not going to cover my tight ends, all right, I'll flood the tight ends, and I'll get 12, 13 receptions to my tight ends. Or now all of a sudden you're concerned about the tight ends. I'll take all the one-on-ones on the outside I can get. It's really an enviable position for Deshaun Watson in this offense to be in, and David Njoku is certainly a key part of what should be the success of this team on the offensive side of the ball.
And in fairness, when he was in Houston, he excelled at doing that, finding the matchups to exploit and doing it repeatedly. So that is something he is good at doing. Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take one more timeout. Other side of the break, some similarities between the Browns in 2023, the Eagles, who went to the Super Bowl in 2022. Sports4CLE, be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Lockdown Browns podcast. Former Eagle LaShawn McCoy on what would constitute a successful season for the Browns. This from FS1's Speak.
Success for me for Deshaun Watson, it would be winning the division, right? That's a tough division. AFC North is a tough division. 3 winning teams last year, right? And the only one that wasn't a winning team was them. Last year, I don't take that as a real year for him, right? Week 12, we know how good he was. He was terrible last year. He was trying to get his feet back underneath him. But if you look at all the stats, right? So first of all, 1989 is the last time they won their division, right? So you pay him $230 million, right? You got these players around him. The playoffs, anything can happen, right? I mean, you saying the Super Bowl is hard to do, but hey, they pay him a lot of money. He should get there eventually. I'm going to say for this year going forward, win your division. The last man had a winning record. It's been like the last, 15 years, one time. The last 15 years.
Baker Mayfield.
You see what I'm saying? So, like, for us to really look at, like, success for him and the team is like, yo, go win your division. You haven't done it in so long. We haven't seen the Browns have a winning season once in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I don't know. They've been in one playoff game in, 28 years?
Yeah.
Come on. Like all these numbers we're talking about is like, yo, it's like, dang.
It's crazy.
Like, wow. They've been bad. They've been bad.
Yeah.
So, for me, Deshaun, win your division.
And Jeff, that's fair. When you hear it, I knew the stats, but when you hear that, it's kind of jarring.
Well, first things first, it was 2 playoff games in the last 28 years.
Right.
They did win their first one. And LaShawn McCoy, the right out of Pittsburgh native, conveniently maybe forget about the Browns' victory in Pittsburgh. But no, look, I mean, to realistically talk about this, and to think even if this team could possibly make a playoff run, go to an AFC Championship game, maybe one day go to a Super Bowl. What's the easiest path? At least start the playoffs at home. And how do you start a playoff game at home? By not being a wild card. So, I mean, you talk about these steps, and yeah, obviously, you start by winning the division. And first things first, for this franchise to be able to look, at the Ravens, look at the Bengals, look at the Steelers, and the Browns fan base certainly, and say, look, hey, we felt we were a much improved franchise. We never got to this level, but you start, it's stepping stones. So obviously, if you want to have a long, extended playoff run, you're looking at taking home the North. And, you can control this because within the first 5 games, you have 3 division games, 2 of them at home, and then you get a really, really soft slate from game 6 going on for a while, where if you do come out and you play well in those first 5 games, you can kind of maybe run away and hide for a little bit. It's there. It can be had. But, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about what the ultimate success is, look, they already did this. They got a wild card in 2020. I don't think, nobody's going to give it back. Nobody's going to turn it down. But I think if you're legitimately hoping in what you think the next step for this franchise is and what you feel this roster is capable of, yeah, it's competing and hopefully ultimately winning the AFC North.
And again, toughest division in football will likely be the AFC North this year. This is interesting as well. Similarities between the Browns heading into the 2023 season and the Eagles heading into the 2022 season. Elite offensive line. Check. Mobile quarterback with elite potential. Yep. Top running game. I would argue the Browns' running game is a whole lot better than the Eagles was, but that offensive line does matter. Defensive line led by an elite pass rusher. Darts taken through the secondary. So when you look at it bullet point by bullet point, you can see the similarities between the way the Browns were built and the way the Eagles were built.
And now, look, if you go off the 2022 Philadelphia Eagles and you go off of what we all know was, Deshaun Watson and what everybody thought Deshaun Watson was going to be before, the career got off the tracks a little bit. Are you going to tell me in 2022, Jalen Hurts, as the season started, anybody thought that his ceiling would be Deshaun Watson-esque? You would still think that Deshaun Watson is obviously a better player. As you mentioned, the running game is another thing. I think the Eagles' defensive line, because they were so good on the interior, is probably a better unit than what the Browns are going to run out there to this point for what we think is going to be 2023. But yeah, you're checking boxes, and it's about secondary play. It's about defensive line play on defense. Let's be honest. I mean, everybody wants to talk about linebackers, and well, that's great. But you want to know what? I want to have the lead. So you want to know what? 1st and 10, if I make it to 2nd and 7, guess what? I'm getting defensive tackles off the field anyway. I'm getting linebackers off the field anyway. I am playing secondary players. I am playing pass rushers because I have the lead, and that's the way my plan is. On offense, it's to have a plethora of playmakers, which the Browns do. They are 3 deep at tight end. They are 5, easily 6 deep at wide receiver. We all know what Nick Chubb is going to be capable of here. The question is, Jerome Ford is going to be able to handle what should be 140-plus increase in touches from his rookie year, but you look at what he did as a kick returner. I don't think anybody was expecting him to do that well, and he did. You think the opportunity for him is there. I think he's going to get a lot more carries, and you're going to use maybe Nick Chubb a little bit more in the passing game because that's the easiest way to get the best out of Nick while also maybe sparing him some hits. But this team is built. And, yeah, to say it's built similar to Philadelphia, well, we all know where Andrew Berry basically went to go mentor, to become a general manager. Obviously, they pluck people away from each other all the time as far as, front office personnel. So, it's not really that odd to say, hey, the Browns seem similar to the Eagles, because I'm sure Andrew Berry would look down to his buddy down in Howie Roseman in Philadelphia and say, hey, thanks for teaching me the few things I did not know.
Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Everybody have a great day. Hope everybody's enjoying their summer. Maybe it'll stop raining one day. Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Locked On Browns podcast. Really good stuff with Browns content. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.